Today's protest over the National Highway's newly imposed tariff was promised to be a peaceful one, but nonetheless violence ensued, with protesters injuring police and destroying the toll booth where the tariff is collected. The violence depicted during the protests today have sparked responses from all sides of politics, with Interior Minister Jaafai declaring this was not an act of honest residents, but that of criminals. Catholic believers celebrate Easter this weekend, remembering the death and rebirth of Jesus Christ. The Holy Mass will be held at St Paul's Cathedral at midnight. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 31st of March 2018. Happy Easter and welcome to the English edition of Aura News. My name's Alexandra and I'm here to bring you the day's top stories from across the country translated into English. Organisers of the protest against the tariff for travelling on the National Highway promised a peaceful protest. However, the violence could not be held at bay. The situation was tense from the beginning when protesters, mainly from the 3 municipalities of the Kukas district, but also coming from Kosovo and other cities, attacked the police with rocks, with the claim that they had been provoked by the blue uniforms. "It was the police who provoked us," exclaimed one of the protesters. As a result of the violent clash, sources from Kukas police reported that 12 officers were injured, as were some citizens on the other side. The protesters' stones also endangered the journalists reporting on the event. Aura News broadcast the entire protest live, thanks to journalist Nertila Dosti and operator Ermal Noka. The police tried to negotiate, but the protesters did not obey, instead reacting violently, almost completely destroying the toll booth where the tariff began to be paid as of Wednesday, with the ability to circulate on the National Highway subject to the payment of prices specified based on the type of vehicle. Police officers coming from Tirana, Shkodra and Leja, as well as the Rapid Intervention Force, all withdrew from the scene, leaving the protesters in an uncontrolled reaction out of the influence of the organisers who had announced a peaceful protest. Tensions brought chaos and blocked traffic to the National Highway for 3 consecutive hours. Interior Minister Fatmir Jaafai has reacted harshly to the violence exercised against police officers during the protest in Kukas. 12 of the police officers have been injured, with 1 even being sent to the hospital. The Interior Minister said the attack on the blue uniforms was made by irresponsible people, among which there may have been even individuals with criminal backgrounds. No one can even pretend to be able to justify such an attack on state police employees or the destruction of property. At no time and under no circumstances is this behaviour acceptable. 12 officials were injured by rocks and other heavy objects thrown by these individuals, with 1 police officer having been seriously injured and now receiving medical help from the hospital, stated Fatmir Jaafai. Seeking the distancing of political representatives from violence, Jaafai also had an appeal to the Kukas municipality. "I appeal to local government authorities in Kukas to distance themselves from these violent acts and exercise their influence by cooperating with and assisting the state police. We must enable normality for the free movement of hundreds of citizens and freight transport today and in the days to come. As Minister of Interior, I declare that the state police will be determined to execute the law," concluded Minister Jaafai. Prime Minister Edi Rama has delivered harsh reaction to the violence which occurred during the protest regarding the tariff for the use of the National Highway. The Prime Minister took to Facebook to condemn the actions. The situation did calm down, although organisers decided to withdraw the protests in Vlora due to the incident. Not long after the decision in Vlora, the head of the government put his 2 cents in, declaring the violence barbaric and announcing that all involved or supporting the condemned actions will be ordered to face the force of law. The barbaric violence which occurred on common property and the violent reaction towards the police forces of Kukas will receive the deserved response to the full extent of the law. All those who have raised their hand in lawlessness, all violators and aspirers, the message is clear. You cannot overcome the law, read the message posted by Edi Rama on Facebook. At the same time as the protest was occurring at the toll booth, where payment for the passage on the National Highway is made, the Prime Minister was giving a speech about the employment strategy, although he did not miss the opportunity to respond to those who opposed the tariff. Prime Minister Rama and an MP of Vlora said that the team he leads has other projects for roads with concessions, and in all situations, those who use the road will be the ones to pay. 2 days ago in Parliament, precisely for this debate, the head of the government said that there will be a number of special mitigation measures for frequent users and residents of the area. Opposition leader Lulzim Basha described the protest on the nation's road that ended with the destruction of the toll booth as a revolt that stems from the injustice of the government. Patience has come to an end, said Basha, urging the Prime Minister to suspend the decision to implement the road tariff. The tariff is a punishment for the citizens of one of the poorest districts in the country. But this is a revolt of the citizens, and this is only the beginning. I urge Rama to suspend the national highway tariff, said Lulzim Basha. Meanwhile, the Socialist Movement for Integration chair, Monica Kuremathi, said the protest is the beginning of the end for this government, which, according to her, has lost the trust of the citizens. The revolt in Kukas is a clear sign of the beginning of the end for this government. They have lost faith and support by ruining the daily lives of Albanian families. Perhaps today we can understand that the revolt has been and remains the end of each regime who tries to rule with crime and corruption, said Monica Kuremathi. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Salih Berisha has followed the protest continuously by commenting on social networks, inviting citizens to join what he calls a civil disobedience movement against Edi Rama. Catholic believers in Albania, just like all over the world, celebrate the Easter feast on Sunday, which marks the resurrection of Jesus Christ after the crucifixion. Archbishop George Frendo has delivered his Easter message to all Albanians, encouraging more solidarity. Help people in need, declared George Frendo. The Catholic Easter began last week with the celebration of Lares Sunday, continuing with the Good Friday and the Great and Holy Saturday of Easter. The Holy Mass will be held at St. Paul's Cathedral at midnight by Archbishop George Frendo for all Catholic believers. The Easter feast sees Catholics recognise the resurrection of Christ, a moment that symbolises the rebirth of hope and the strengthening of faith in the Lord. On the eve of the Easter feast, Catholic believers celebrated the Way of the Cross ritual on Friday evening to commemorate the suffering of Jesus Christ. In Shkodra, the Way of the Cross ritual started with the liturgy in front of the cathedral in the presence of many believers led by Archbishop Angelo Masafra. This ritual marks one of the most important moments on the eve of Easter, with hundreds of Catholic believers becoming part of the ritual in the city of Leja. The parish of the Leja Cathedral, Don Abram, talked about the importance of this day, expressing that prayers go for all families to live in peace and love in harmony with each other. The Cross's Way comes with 14 stops, and in each of them, believers pray and commemorate the sufferings of Jesus Christ. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join me again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. On behalf of Ora News, thank you, good night, and have a lovely weekend.